We're going to call this meeting to order. This is the City of Palatka's Community Redevelopment Agency meeting for February 14th, 2022. Happy Valentine's Day. At this time, we will have our pledge and invocation. I'm going to ask Commissioner Moore if you lead us in invocation and pledge.
Lord, I thank you for the day, for your grace and your mercy, and most of all, your unconditional love. Thank you for a day that we have not seen before. And we want to wish everybody happy Valentine's Day, and more especially my wife's birthday. Wish her a special Valentine's Day birthday. And God give us the knowledge, wisdom, and guidance that we need in order to be able to help fulfill the initiative that we need to help improve this community today. So I ask these things in your son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Tammy McCaskill.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Will Jones.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Justin Campbell.
Present.
Commissioner Rufus Gorham.
Present.
Mayor Terrell Hill.
Here.
And Jeff Ross.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum here in the chambers.
All right. Next up is approval of the minutes from our December 9th meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those minutes?
Motion to approve minutes.
There's a motion by Commissioner Campbell. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to public comments. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. No action will be taken on topics of discussion. If there's anyone here wishing to speak during public comment, please fill out a yellow speaker's card and we will call you up. As you are called up, please give your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak and there'll be no action taken on topics of discussion. You can also dial 386-329-0100 extension 0. First up, as we open up public comment, is Annie Svetlik. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Annie Svetlik, 511 North Third Street, Palatka, Florida. I'm here to ask about the TIP program that does not exist any longer, but I still would like to discuss it a little if we could.
Number 3.
I got.
It's on the agenda, number 3. Number 3 on the agenda.
Coming up.
Can I still?
Sure.
Yep. I got, a couple of years ago, I got lucky because that program was still in effect. And it was August to get house painted and, repairs and all that. But that ceased to exist, that program now. And it is kind of difficult for neighbors to be on the same terms always. There is animosity a little because we got it, they don't get it. So I'm here to see if there's maybe an other way to get some funds to these people, because I know you can allocate the money the way you want it, but it doesn't seem totally fair, that, I got it, someone else doesn't get it. A few doors down, they got it, the next street down, they need repairs and a new roof, but they didn't get it. So, there is friction there because of it. So that's what I would like to address and see if there's maybe another program or if there's.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about fairness, I mean, the other part is you got people who don't live in CRA districts who don't get anything. And they pay the same taxes.
But that's true, but that still is,
They pay the same taxes
we
you pay.
live very close, in proximity of each other in the same neighborhood. So I just would want to see if there's other funds available.
I mean, I get it, but you know, at my house, I fix everything myself. I mean, I understand it, but
Yeah.
you know, so some people don't have the luxury of being in the CRA district where they get the opportunity to be, to have other funds available. And, you know, I think in a perfect world, if we could help everybody, we would. I think the
Yeah.
reality is we got limited funds.
I understand that there are limited funds, but then also, I think that, you know, it says in your guidelines also to facilitate the revitalization of downtown Palatka, the North Historic District and the South Historic District. And don't we, in a way, the people that live there contribute to these funds because of the taxes?
So do the people on the north side and the south side and Hudson Avenue and over
No,
near
I
Francis
understand
as
what
well.
you're saying, but you probably understand also what I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying, but there, you know, if you really ask me, and if I would say that, you know, the people who have the luxury of living in historic homes and who have certain values, there are some other folks who live in homes that may never be worth more than $25,000 who don't get anything.
Well, nowadays in Palatka.
And they've got to
everything
make
is
a
worth
choice
lot,
between,
but-
they got to make a choice between their medicine and whether they're going to fix a window in the
Yeah,
house.
but that's, I understand all that, but that's a different issue.
No, it's a real issue.
No, yeah, but I'm just
not a
now
different issue.
talking about the Community Redevelopment Agency, you know, the TIF-HIP program, if you have something like that. Because I heard something that there would be another program put in place.
There's a benefit to living in the TIF district because you're able to structure activities and programs and funding, and you can do all of that through a plan. But this district is a design for it to be the maintenance program for homeowners. And that's the one thing we all need to understand.
So there is not going to be anything in the future. I cannot bring anything.
You can
positive
listen to item number 3 on the agenda.
back. Okay.
There's going to be a criteria put in place, and if it's approved by the CRA, it may have some amendments. There's going to be 5 other opinions besides mine as to how this program works. Plus, we're going to get input from the community as a whole. Once you listen to it, if it's something else you want to add, then we'll let you bring up your comment at that time for that specific item.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
No problem. Anyone else here for public comment? Seeing none. Public comment. Next up is our regular business. Direction and discussion on 8 Phillip Randolph intermodal transportation hub permeable pavers project. Is that Mr. Griffith or Ms. I'm sorry, Ms. Gano. I got to start calling you more often.
Hello, Marcia Gano, Project Manager, City of Palatka. This is being presented to the commission this evening as a follow-up from the 210 commission meeting in which you approved the change order for the permeable paver portion of the 8 Phillip Randolph Transportation Hub project. The request this evening is for the $170,000 to be moved from reserves to the project line.
And so this is what we discussed. We've discussed this a couple times. And so are there any questions from the commission as it relates to the request? Commissioner Jones?
Yeah, I asked the question before, but I didn't go into detail of what actually is gonna be changed. We got a refund back because we're gonna take some things out of the project, but now we're asking for more money to go back in for additional pavers and things of that nature. So is there a rendering or anything to show what we're gonna actually be doing that's different?
I don't have a rendering with me this evening. The changes are all to bring it in line with the specific criteria of the grant in terms of the number of pavers, the lighting and the landscaping required.
So that wasn't included in the original
The original.
for the project?
The original scope was done while the design and the permitting was still being complete. So now that we have that information, we've refined it and then have to meet the terms of the grant in those 3 areas.
I understand that. So when the design and the permitting, that means design mean how it's gonna look. Am I correct?
Correct.
And the permitting for that design. So what changed and how did it change? That's the question. Because another question I had, I personally raised the question about the entrance. Is that going to change? The entrance on Main Street? I want to make certain that that is.
I don't know, I might have to phone a friend.
Forgive me, I just asked Mr. Saluski if he could share his screen. He does have the most current plan. Commissioner, the easiest way I can explain it is when the bids came in, it was over budget. So we had to basically think on our feet and figure out how to continue forward because we have a specific time period. We have to perform the work to get the grant funds. So we took the project and we basically cut it in half. We said, we know we're going to construct this portion, but the other half, we've got to figure out how to get some cost savings on. And at the same time, that means you're going back to the table with the Water Management District. There were some complications in regards to what they term basins. They're different watershed areas, and we were working in a specific basin. So there was some design changes that had to accommodate that. But most of this, the majority of this is as a result of being over budget and getting it within budget. So we took in excess of $170,000 originally out of the project. And now we're bringing that $170,000 addition back to you so we can complete the scope as written in the grant agreement. And Mr. Saluski, do you have a rendering that we can show everyone? Thank you. Perfect timing.
And clarification, it's just been like one project that we had approved. And once the completion occurred, it didn't look like what we approved to me. It just may be my perception. So I'm a visual learner and I would like to see it and then know what I'm approving. Just not to purposely hold the meeting up. Just let you know. So what area has changed?
Chris, do you want to take this? You want me to take a stab at it?
Why don't you go for it in the room? I'm having a tough time hearing everyone.
Okay. So the project is oriented north to south right now. So the top of the sheet is the north area. And predominantly everything, if you draw a line through the middle of that sheet right there, is the existing geometry of the site. We didn't change much with the limits of the curb work and the pavement. We basically took asphalt up, we put pervious pavers down. What we're changing is the area to the south, to where the existing parking lot just kind of didn't have a defined edge and just went into a combination of lime rock and millings and grass, and there was no defined parking area and no sidewalks or ADA access. So that area to the bottom left-hand corner of the sheet is what changed. There used to be a lot more pervious pavers and parking that was in the original design. And as you can see, what we're attempting to do is complete some of the platform enhancements around the western edge of the building. Thank you for the cursor work there. That's amazing. We can't go past the imaginary line though. Chris, will you show them that imaginary line right there? Right now, we can't get any equipment past that because we still have coordination to do with Amtrak and CSX. And that will occur in the next phase with the raised funding, sir. And we're also proposing to do the chamber parking lot, which is shown in white right now. It will remain asphalt, but in the future, we're proposing to take that to pervious pavers and show where the connection will be, Chris, the vehicular connection.
For the chamber parking lot?
Yes,
Right here.
right there. Thank you. Yep.
Okay, so on the further northeast end, will there be, that's Madison, nope, yeah, right there, Main Street. Will there be an entrance there? That was my main concern.
With the
We have it there now.
Well, that is a temporary entrance as of right now, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to construct the pavers where the entrance to the south is. But the current design does not call for a vehicular entrance there. It only calls for the trail entrance, sir.
But as we are changing things, can that be considered? Because I know that was staff recommendation and recommendation of the developer. But if the commission wants that, can't we have the entrance there?
So my suggestion would be, if that's the will of the CRA board, to make that recommendation, they could very well do that. I would request that you at least go ahead and move forward, if it's the will of the board, with the approving the budget amendment, and then take that up as a second item. If you do, and we would go back to the drawing board with Mr. Saluski and the contractor, and basically put a number to that request. And we'd have to change that geometry there so that everybody could see how that would impact the northeast corner of the parking lot. And it would come back before the city commission and CRA at a later date.
So you lose that corner.
So it,
Parking spaces, if you did that right.
That's
A
not
number of
parking
those,
spaces.
yes, sir.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, you weren't finished. You were.
That area is not parking spaces or designated parking spaces, is it? What I'm talking about.
It is, when the project is complete and the other vehicular entrance is opened back up, those will be parking spaces.
So the design will have one entrance, one way in, one way out on the Price Martin side. And then they have a entrance on the Chamber side.
Yes, sir.
So you're going to ask a question. This is something that's going to be taken up later, but when you say you have to go back and close that entrance off or to open an entrance from Main Street. To open an entrance from Main Street, would that mean you'd have to go back to the design phase?
For that specific section, but as you move through projects like this, it's not uncommon to make adjustments as you encounter things in the field, or, you know, as you want to make adjustments at the will of the CRA board or the commission.
And you'd come back and advise the commission of what the cost of that would be.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You know, I just, and I'm gonna say this and I'm done. I just feel that the opinion of the board is just not taken seriously. I mentioned that long before we even got to this point about change order. So if we're gonna have a change order, maybe I wanted that to be considered, because I think we discussed it some time ago. But again, if it's not the will of the board, okay, I just want to make sure I brought it back up again since it had opportunity.
Well, that's something that I had a concern with as well, with the ingress egress off of closing out one of the entrance ways from the Main Street side. So, and I think we had talked about that and what it would look like. I didn't know it was going to continue to be closed out. So that was a concern that I had as well.
The motion.
I got a question for you. They're currently where there was a dumpster pad at the northeast corner of the building. Is that still there?
It is, yes, sir. No, it's there. It will remain.
Is there enough turning radius there to get a garbage truck in there efficiently?
There is.
Okay.
Is there somewhere else we can put that pad?
I've always
'Cause
hated it where it is. and
I
built
hate the
it.
location of it.
I thought it was terrible when they
Well,
had
we're,
designed it.
well, we're talking about making the change. This-
You know, if you're talking about moving stuff, you could just move the caboose and put it over there.
I'll take it all day long. I would take you
Right there
moving
by
that.
back
I
door.
would take you moving that dumpster to that side compared to having it where it's at right now, and the parking spaces that we're gonna lose by keeping that temporary entrance there. We'll gain them back where the dumpster is.
Yeah, I like that. It's just right there up against the building.
Yeah, the dumpster, I've always hated the location of the dumpster.
You want to put the dumpster out there closer to 17 Reed
Man, I don't
Street?
care. You can put the dumpster in the back of the building for all I care. Just get it away from where it is.
Right now, it's next to a back door, and that's an event space. It's not the most pleasant thing to have by your door.
We're about to gain the next two spaces over on the street. So
If it's the will of the board, if there's a motion to put the entrance back, we can definitely look at that.
I think that's a separate conversation, correct?
Listen,
Or is it all-
I'll entertain a motion to put the entrance back and move that dumpster.
That for safety, in my opinion, safety reasons and ingress egress.
Somebody want to make a motion?
So I'll make that motion
So we're-
to approve this funding, the change order with the addition of the clarification of keep making that entrance, permanent entrance
For
down on the
housekeeping-
northeast side.
For housekeeping purposes, can you do this two motions, one dealing with the funding and then a separate one dealing with the changes?
Okay, the first one is to make an amendment to the plan to have keep that Main Street entrance there and relocate the dumpster landing area.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion on the floor, second by Commissioner Borum. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the commissioners on Zoom?
Under discussion?
Go
So
ahead.
just so we're clear, we're leaving what's there now. We're leaving what's there now,
Which is a temporary entrance. And
but that's
and-
always been a permanent entrance.
Yeah,
Right,
but,
it's been
but what's deemed it by staff right now as a temporary entrance.
So there's a
And-
cost savings there.
Right,
Right.
so, and moving the dumpster.
Yep.
And looking at alternate site for the dumpster. So,
There is not a cost savings. The asphalt has been removed. That is gravel that's down there right now. So this will be an additive change order.
okay, all right.
Just to be clear.
What was going in the space?
Well, maybe we need to do one project at a time.
So I guess what I'm looking at there now, what's not going to be put in that's showing there now is what I see as a cost savings.
So what will end up happening is they'll route the ingress and egress there. We'll have to put a terminal landscape island, which will take the place of a couple of those parking spots on the eastern and northern side. We may be able to keep some of the parking spots on that northern edge, a few. And we'll have to look at, if we relocate the dumpster to the back of the building, how do we actually maintain access for the truck, which will probably mean losing a few more of those spots on the northern property edge there.
We own the property to the north of the parking lot too. So couldn't we come through there?
If there was a road.
Or just an easement of some kind.
Or you can look for the most cost-effective way to meet both goals. So there's a motion. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to the second part, the financial portion of your motion. And that's staff's recommendation for the change order in the amount of $170,000+ plus.
I move that we approve that based on staff's recommendation.
Second.
Floor, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner McCaskill. Any further discussion?
Under discussion. So we're putting back in money that was already leveraged, or already set aside for this.
The money was, I think the number that was given before was like 264,000, which was the original number, 246,000. Yeah, it was the original number, and then
Pull back
and now we're
170.
pulling 170 again
Right.
out. That money was placed in reserves, and now we're pulling it back
Right.
out. Ms. Shank, any additional commentary?
Ms. Valeria is advising that Commissioner Rawls's mic is on, and she was looking to see if it was.
His mic's on. The light looks like is the
It's
light
on.
on?
It's on,
It's
lights
green.
on.
It's on.
Lights green.
Can you hear Ms. Thomas?
Say something.
Check. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mayor, and I can hear Commissioner Rawls now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, so there's a motion. There's a motion to accept staff's recommendation for the change order. Ms. Shank, you got anything else? Okay. And whenever finance has nothing else, we're all right. Any further discussion on the motion as it exists? Commissioner Campbell and McCaskill, if you can hear us, you have any further discussion?
No, sir.
No, thank.
Anything else from the dais? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on, consideration of proposed building improvement program, cost share program.
Does everyone have a copy of the revised program that was distributed this afternoon?
Do you, Commissioner Campbell and McCaskill, do you have a copy of the revised cost share program?
I'll do. That was
Yeah.
sent via email. Yeah.
Commissioner McCaskill, you have it?
I do. It was sent via email.
Okay. So everybody has a copy of the revised cost share program. Just so, Mr. Griffith, can you go through the last revision, kind of summarize so that we'll have that information, give a quick summary of what's proposed so that those who have not had a chance to review the program will also be able to understand.
Yes, of course, Mayor. So as you may recall, the board directed staff to come back with a revised cost share program to replace all the current grant programs that were previously approved. That's before you today. Simply put, this is modeled more in line with the previous building improvement grant program, which incentivizes additional leverage, and it puts a cap, which is up for discussion today, on the total amount of award. Just to summarize some of the changes that were made, and I apologize, the first one, it looks like there's a grammatical error. That random 3 is not supposed to be there, but we added in the sentence, the owner will have 10 days from notification of award to execute the grant agreement and up to 1 year from the date of execution of the grant agreement to complete the work. This is something that we've had a problem with a couple of times, where people get an award, they don't end up executing the agreement on time, or they do, and we don't have a specified amount of time for the funds to be drawn down. For the sake of financing and accounting for these funds, we wanted to put a deadline on that for you. We're suggesting, again, it's just a suggestion, a maximum grant amount of up to $25,000. That was based on the idea of trying to spread the money around if you are to approve the program and have a number of applications or approved projects rather than just 1 or 2, as well as thinking about the type of work that may be completed, usually electrical, plumbing, roofing, painting. We kind of thought that $25,000 cap for grant was a good one.
And that number, excuse me, Jonathan, but that also is based upon the assumption that you're going to allocate about $100,000 to the program, plus or minus. That would mean that you'd have the potential for 4 grants. We believe you could do that without interfering with the ability to use the TIF monies to leverage some of the other projects like we're currently doing with some of the potable water project grants. So that's the assumption we operated with. Obviously, it's your call to make, but that's the assumption that we operated with.
The next one was, we added a statement in the application cycle on page 205. Wanted to make sure that everybody knew that we were going to receive field applications and specify the time frame to which the CRA would receive those applications. So it's 30 days prior to and up to each application deadline. I will point out the application deadlines as proposed. We wouldn't be able to make the March 1st deadline. So if you were wanting to consider having this program active for this fiscal year, we'd probably need to look at those deadlines and have a conversation about that. Otherwise, the first one would be October 3rd, 2022. On page 3 of 5, again, put clarification in the application process stating in a sealed envelope. I want to make sure that everybody is submitting these in a sealed envelope, just like any other request for proposal, request for qualifications, or invitation to bid. And added the statement, submittals will be opened as soon as possible after the submission deadline. On page 4 of 5, under selection and evaluation criteria, we added the sentence, the evaluation will occur in accordance with the evaluation criteria as soon as practical at a time and place to be determined, but not more than 30 days after the deadline. Wanted to give applicants some idea as to when they may actually hear back on the evaluation committee's recommendation.
And just go over the categories for criteria.
As currently written, the first one is project quality with a total of 30 points. And that is detailed as quality of the proposed improvements. For example, material design and construction method and adherence to historic standards. Those projects with approved certificate of appropriateness and all applicable building permits will receive priority. The next category is project feasibility. The level of detail and accurateness of the project scope of work, budget, and plans for a total points of 20. The next category is redevelopment impact, degree to which grant funds are to be applied in eliminating blight and stabilizing or increasing property values in immediate area. Total of 20 points. The final category or criteria, financial capability and matching funds, 30 possible points. Financial capability of the applicant to undertake the project and degree of investment leveraging by applicant and matching funds.
And note that any application which received less than 70 points would not be awarded funds. So just if you got only one application and it scored out at 50, it wouldn't be one that was funded.
Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Good question. So under the financial capabilities, if a person requests a $25,000 grant and they have $25,000 savings account, does that display financial capability?
Commissioner, I think it would be if they actually committed in writing that they were going to use those funds as their match.
Okay.
And an evaluator would basically look at the different applications and would have to rank them within the 30-point spread based upon those that have more capability or more matching funds.
You know, I think what concerns me is if you have 3 projects that you're looking at and one person has more financial ability, but all 3 of them are financially viable, it really puts a person at a disadvantage that might be sitting with $100,000.
Resources.
Exactly. And I just don't, I personally don't like that. But
Which was part of my comment, which was gonna be the people who probably need the money the most are gonna be,
Right.
they're not gonna score as high.
the other thing I noticed, just to probably, Scrivener's error if nothing else, but you've got $25,000 and it says 25 in brackets. I believe that first 25 should be spelled out in letters, not numbers.
Thank you.
But I don't think I would vote for the way this is presented because of the capabilities and the disparity that it creates. I think it's going to create heartache for us as a board in the future.
Any suggestions or comment to your comments?
Unless there's some type of scalability, but that's an excellent point.
I think if you have the financial ability, you get 30 point period.
Right.
I don't think it should be looked at as, well, this person has more financial ability,
Right.
therefore they get the money.
I'm okay with having the financial ability piece in. I guess my concern would be the number of points associated with it. It's a 30-point category. So if it was a lower, if that scoring matrix
Right.
was lower and we increased, whether it was on project quality or even increased project feasibility, I think it would be it'd be more easier to kind of appeal to it from that standpoint. I think just the matrix lowering where it is on the spectrum on the match portion and increasing maybe another portion of it would kind of work better towards that. Because what happens is if you got a person who's got limited resources and they may have a viable project, then we put them in a position where they're definitely not going to get funded. And at the end of the day, there's creative means, or there's some ways in which people can get funded and create their matches on the project. But I just think overall, just where we are, it's the highest category of scoring next to project quality.
Something else too, if you look at project quality, it's so vague, and I think we're just setting ourselves up for disappointment when somebody comes in and they have a project that's viable. But what is the definition of quality if they come in with it drawn on the back of a napkin, but it really makes a big difference in the neighborhood versus someone that comes in with their architect and they have something already drawn up and ready to present?
I like to see us take the impact, the redevelopment impact, and increase it and lower the financial capability aspect.
What point totals would you suggest, Mayor? What's the differential you would suggest?
At least,
I would say 10.
Yeah.
10 to 15, 10 to 15. I mean,
So if it were 10, you'd want to go to 30 on redevelopment impact and 20 on financial capability.
I agree with that. 10.
Financial capability.
Commissioner McCaskill, what'd you say?
I agree with that 10 the feasibility. The 10-point increase versus the 15. I know Borum suggested probably 10, 15. So I'm agreeing with the 10.
So we're saying move redevelopment to 30 and move financial capability to 20.
Yes.
Is that acceptable for?
I think financial capability should be The lowest number of all,
So you said it should be lower than 20.
10.
I would say 20.
20. Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Campbell.
Let me ask a question, not
Let me,
to risk throwing a wrench in the machinery. If they don't have the financial capability to complete the project, it probably shouldn't be a qualifying grant app. I'm asking whether or not that should just be a threshold. And I'll be honest with you, I don't understand necessarily the explanation of degree of investment leveraging by applicant and matching funds. I mean, I guess I'm asking, would it, the financial capability be in seeking to diminish its significance? If you have the money to complete the project, shouldn't that just be a qualifier? If you don't have the money, you shouldn't get the funds. If you do have the money, then the other terms, the other points would determine whether or not you rank higher than somebody else.
so you're saying just
Right.
eliminate that category?
I am.
Just make it a condition.
I am.
Yep.
Makes sense.
I agree with that.
So we can make, so this,
40, 30, 30 on the other ones, or 40, 20, 40?
However y'all. Yeah.
however, it can be even. I don't care. But I mean, I'm fine with making that
Gotta
a
get to
condition
100 somehow.
precedent.
So Jonathan, let's just add back in the criteria in terms of, we've already got in here that you have to have, it's 25% matching. We could just put a clause in there that states that, applicant must demonstrate financial ability to complete the project as a absolute. And then depending upon what the commission decides as to the point allocation of the remaining three categories, go from there.
Also, how would you determine that? Commissioner Rawls mentioned if they show that they have it in the bank. What if they show the ability to go get an additional loan?
I think you'd have to have at least a loan commitment.
Yeah, so there's other ways you could show that. So, and then going back to what the mayor said, why would they apply if they just had the money to do it all? The reason why they're applying, a lot of people, is because like the young lady said, there's other people that probably needed a lot more, to complete their
But
project.
then you take that, by doing what I suggested,
Yeah.
you take that out of the equation. If they don't have the money to complete the project, we don't want to give them we don't want to give them money and then the project not be completed. If they do have the money, either by loan commitment or demonstrated savings, they qualify, and then you guys rank them based upon the remaining three categories.
But it's reimbursement, so if they don't use it, they don't get the money anyway. Right?
We don't want them using this and not investing the other 50% though.
As I understand, I thought they couldn't use it. They have to, this is a reimbursement to what they use. So we're not giving them anything until they already put their money in.
That is correct.
Yeah.
But having some verification on the front end guards the board as well as staff from wasting time on something that may not come to fruition.
Right.
So my suggestion would be on page 3 of 5 under section 3B, just add within that list of applications must include verification of matching funds, for example, loan approval or demonstrated savings.
Fine.
That's fine. And on the scoring for the remaining categories,
Delete financial capability, increase project quality to 40, and split the other ones however you will.
I'd say the redevelopment impact is the most important. So I would say 30, 30, 40.
And I agree.
Because if we've got a project that's gonna have greater impact in removing blight, then it should receive greater consideration as opposed to just how the presentation of the project goes.
So project feasibility would be 30 and redevelopment impact would be 40, and you'd leave project quality at 30.
Correct.
Okay.
That's a suggestion. Is that if it's favorable to everyone?
But we talked about lowering
Sounds good to
feasibility.
me.
We just went the other direction. Wouldn't it make sense to go 40, 10, 40,
For what?
Or-
40, 10.
35, 15, 40, or something like that?
Commissioner Campbell, you've been quiet.
I'm here, I'm listening. I'm in agreement with Raw's breakdown.
40, 10, 40.
Yes.
Gives you
I'm actually okay. I'm okay with
So
it.
in 90.
Gives you 90.
That's only 90.
He went to Florida State though.
45, 10, 45,
So would it be 40, 40,
45.
20?
45, 10, 45, or we could bump bump one to 50. But that was one that Ms. McCaskill raised the issue and said that maybe we should take that. I agree.
Commissioner McCaskill.
What's their numbers?
Supporting the redevelopment impact. 40, 30, 30. Am I right? Crickets? 40, 30, 30.
Any thoughts?
Well, I think my concern is when it says the level of detail and accurateness of the project and scope, how sophisticated does someone need to be able to get their point across? You know, and I think just, you know, some could be so unbalanced if we're not careful.
I got a concern too with, I think with the number as it relates to the criteria, if you meet, because initially say if you didn't meet, what, 60%, 50 or 60%. So if you get the 50%, yeah. If your total project doesn't score out the 50%, then you get
70 points.
right. So two categories will be 70.
No.
If you got the maximum points, I mean.
What if they just get the first two? They won't reach it.
Okay, I was just thinking, okay, so it'll be a scale per category and, okay, that's fine. I'm good.
What I'm seeing is if we're looking at this where you're trying to eliminate blight, stabilize or increase property values, that should be a huge number.
Yes.
And then when you look at the quality of the proposed project, including the materials being used, adherence to historic standards, that's the other part of the equation, especially we're in the north and south TIF.
Right.
So those two should have the most weight.
Right.
I understand that, you know, if somebody comes in and they've sketched something out, like we're going to be hearing one that's got some hand sketches. So, you know, if there's an architect sitting on the board, they may look at this and go, well, this guy doesn't have any level of sophistication. Why do I want to give them a full 30 points? But if somebody's put their best foot forward and the project improves the neighborhood and they're sustaining the intent of the historic standards, I think that speaks for the project more than anything. But I'll go along with whatever. I'm just bringing it up as an issue.
Last comment before I entertain a motion. Commissioner Jones.
Can I request some guidance from our planning director on it? Being a subject matter expert.
Matrix.
Huh?
She would be the subject matter expert on a matrix.
No, I'm just saying her opinion. I value her opinion, but I, as you said though, Mayor, about the redevelopment impact, so that it'll be 70% would be 70 points could be obtainable easier. You know, if we make that redevelopment impact 50%.
Why does it have to be
one of these and still qualify?
Why does it have to be 100?
Why does it have to be 100?
Well, it got to be at least 70 points.
We could change that too. Just saying. We're stuck on 100%.
You get what I'm saying? So
It's killing us.
How about you want to make that a motion?
all right,
Run your score as a motion. But so can you repeat it? Go ahead and restate it. What your numbers are for your three categories?
I motion that we do the selection and evaluation criteria based upon these points for these areas, these are criteria areas. Redevelopment impact, 50 points. The highest you can get is 50 points. Project feasibility, 25 points. And that means 35 points for project quality.
25.
That, 20, I'm sorry, 25, I'm sorry.
But if we went 35, that'd be 15 on the number two.
Say it again.
Nothing.
50, 25, I'm sorry. And my reasoning is it takes 70 points. Oh, I'm sorry, I ain't gotta do that. That was my motion. I just told my reason.
So it's 50, 25, 25 for an even 100.
Yeah, even 100.
25, 25, 50. Yeah, top down.
Got a motion for 25, 25, 50 from Commissioner Jones
And eliminating the bottom
Yeah,
one.
we eliminate the financial
with the
capability.
stated
I'll second
changes,
that.
with the stated changes that came from Mr. Griffith as to the elimination of the financial capability.
And second by, Mr. Ross.
Second by Commissioner Ross.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on the motion? And this, hold on, I got a late comment card, but I'm gonna take you in the 11th hour. Go ahead, come on up.
To clarify as well, are you changing those 70 points to 50 or keeping it at 70?
Stand at 70 still. Go ahead.
She needs her microphone on, please.
I don't, we haven't discussed it.
Jonathan, yes.
Miss,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, we
That's a
can't
huge
hear
point.
Ms.
There probably
Carrera.
should be a disclaimer.
Cut your mic on.
Okay, that's a good point.
Plus, I didn't have my glasses
She's
on.
asking what they be, she was asking what the individuals be 1099 and the answer was yes from staff.
So I think there should be just a statement in the program so people are aware of that and go in eyes wide open. That's all.
Okay.
Excellent point.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is 25, 25, 50 for the program with the 70-point minimum criteria still in place. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I think the 70 may need to just be bumped up by 5 points so that two categories, if you scored maximum in both categories, at least you would need to get some points out of the other categories. I mean,
It's not gonna matter at the end of the day, I don't think.
don't worry about
I think at the end of the day, it's a number that was put out there kind of to eliminate low scoring. I think the purpose was to eliminate some things that just didn't score well.
All right.
So we wouldn't have to deal with those or even consider them. But at the end of the day, it's a competitive grant process. So all the projects are gonna be evaluated and the higher ranking projects are gonna be the ones that are gonna come up first. After, okay. Any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Zoom land.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Okay, Mr. Griffith.
So the last item is considering if you want to put this program in place and fund it for this fiscal year or wait until next fiscal year.
Let me ask for clarification. Was the vote that you just took to approve the program, or was it just on the point totals? Just for clarification purposes.
I move that we approve the program with the modifications made.
Second.
I say.
Motion on the floor in a second. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
I thought it was all encompassing, but we've got clarity now. Mr. Griffith. So as it relates to the program as a whole, my suggestion is that we go ahead and implement it. We've already got the budget we would have to do a budget modification anyway. For the funding for the project with the recommendation to the city commission to fund at the $100,000 level. That's what we're trying to do. And as far as and I think we can do that with a recommendation that we push the first March deadline, we push it back a little bit.
You could push it back, but then we need to talk about the limits per district, and Ms. Shank and I have some numbers for you to consider.
Go ahead and give those just so we can start to have a conversation.
I'm just going to use round numbers, and this is based upon about a 90% calculation of what's available in reserves. And we don't want to pull all of reserves. In downtown, there's approximately $50,000. In the north, there's approximately $35,000. In the south, there's approximately $50,000.
So what was it downtown again?
50.
50, 35, 50?
Yes, sir.
That's what you could pull to put in a budget for the grant program.
Yes, sir.
Just leaving 10% reserves basically for each district.
Yes.
And that's for fiscal year ending September 29.
Yes.
30.
30.
All right, any conversation, any comments?
Mayor, if you got 30 days for the application cycle, we'd want to publish a notice in the paper and probably push it out. So you're probably looking
I'd push it.
sometime in April, maybe late
I'd push it
April.
in May. I would, if you're gonna do it, I'd say push it to May. That way you give opportunity for people to become aware that the funds are available and to be able to put their projects together.
So that's a May 1 deadline.
At least 60 days from, I would say I probably do May 15, just for the purposes of giving 60 days from today's date for people to push projects.
So we'd have a May 15 deadline, which would mean the application period would open April 15.
You guys both picked a Sunday, so let's go with maybe May 11th. That's a Wednesday.
May 16th. May 16th. I just think where we are is if we give 60 days, it gives people time to put their projects together, to be able to become aware that there are some funds out there for us to be able to put the input out.
Whatever y'all think.
And kind of go from there. The other part of it is this is going to replace TIF-HIP. This is going to replace
Everything.
residential rehab. We need to put, we need to put some flyers out or something and a mailer or something to everyone who's eligible in the district.
So we
Three
recently,
districts.
we recently did a mailer. It was probably one of the most successful public outreach campaigns because it got to everybody and we got a response. If you budgeted maybe anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500, we could send a mailer to every property owner in the districts.
Shoot.
That was to the entire city.
Shoot. That's not really, we're not talking that many people.
But I think it's important to let everybody know that if they're looking for the home improvement grant, they're not going to see that. No, this is the new, whatever it's going to be, but all wrapped up into one.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to community redevelopment grant. Actually, building improvement grant. I'm sorry, building improvement grant cost share program.
Yeah, but I think if you put a flyer out that says, that has a summary of what grants are available in CRA districts throughout the city, and then it includes the criteria and something to that effect, and then there's a line on the bottom that says
Changes.
this replaces those grants. And instead of mailing them out, Mr. Griffith is going to hand deliver all of them.
Can we do official, like an official letter to just sort of be like a letterhead?
Do a flyer, they ain't gonna read the letter.
No, we just have I guess, a letter to each one of the districts that's impacted, south, central, and north.
Yeah.
To each one of them.
So at this time, in order to do that, entertain a motion to set the budget capped at $1,500 to do the advertising for that.
I'd like to make a motion that we cap the budget at $1,500 to do the communication to the districts, the central, north, and south districts.
There's a motion for a $1,500 cap on advertising of program changes to all TIF districts, residents and businesses. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Campbell. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, even with Commissioner Campbell.
Mr. Mayor, could we then have a motion to go ahead and, since you have approved a program that has a March 1 date for your first cycle deadline, can we have a motion that for this immediate next cycle, that the deadline be set at May, whatever date you choose, with all of the other timeframes to be correspondingly spaced, so.
With staff's recommendation.
Right.
Is there a motion?
I'm confused. What are we?
The motion is, so if you look at what our recommendation was in our packet.
Right.
The dates were March and October.
Right.
And all Mr. Holmes is recommending is that because there's a change in the first deadline, that there be a motion to say that the first deadline is going to be May 16th or whatever the date is that we choose, and that we'll then follow the schedule as accordingly as written.
Right, just this initial cycle that we go ahead.
So moved.
There's motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And what day in May was that?
16th, motion carries. Motion carries for May 16th.
Is there any opposition to giving staff some latitude as long as we hit within that week? We typically like to do openings not on a Monday and Friday.
We just want you to come to work after the weekend.
Well, you don't say in your grant that you're going to open the same day of the deadline.
No, you're saying that, no, all that's saying is that's the deadline for getting the
That's the
applications
deadline
in.
for submission is
No,
May
you
16th.
can mark your date for opening for whatever day you choose to, but no, it's just locking in what day the applications have to be in.
Well, be advised that since this program is approved next year or the year after that or the year after that, these dates are going to have to change because we can't have a deadline on a holiday or a weekend. So I just want the board to understand that these dates may change by 1 or 2 days in the future.
Well, we could
Change the language to on or about.
So
Change the language to on or about, and then you're good.
exactly.
Well, the rule of law is that if a deadline falls on a Sunday or a holiday.
You go to the next business day. Just do on or about, and you're fine.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, what's your next?
was there a motion for the budget amendment?
That was done earlier.
Okay, sorry.
Because you
For the
waited until it was done
advertising,
before you had your next comment.
You only did a motion for the advertising.
So you want it for the 100,000 now?
It's 135,000, right?
It's a recommendation. 100,000.
135, you're correct.
135. 50, 50, and 35.
Mhm.
Maintain a motion to do a budget amendment for this program, an amount of a cap at 135,000.
That allocated as Mr. Griffith indicated, the 50-50-35.
Right.
Motion to accept staff's recommendation for budget amendment, $135,000.
Second.
Recommended to city commission.
Could I ask a question? Oh, I would.
It's motion on the floor in a second. Discussion is open. Commissioner, go ahead.
So this is out of the reserves from each district, right?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make clarification.
And this is only for the balance of this year.
This is a recommendation for the 90 for this year. Yeah, every year you got to review it to see what you're going to put in there as we do budget. So in September, well, from July, from this summer we'll go back and start looking at what numbers are going to work for the districts. So the motion on the floor, is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Any more motions on this item? Seeing none, we will move to item number 3, recruitment grant request in the amount of $50,000 at 726 St. John's Avenue. Jeremy and Crystal Alexander, the applicants.
Let me give an overview.
Board members, during the time or just prior to the CRA taking action and suspending all grant programs for the consideration of the recently adopted new cost share program, Mr. Alexander submitted this application The review committee at the time consisted of the mayor, Mr. Holmes, and myself. No recommendation was made at the time that the review committee met because the CRA had directed staff to draft this new program. At Mr. Alexander's request, this item was placed on the agenda for your consideration, and I believe he's here to speak to it.
And the item was passed previously. It was continued previously when we canceled the CRA meeting.
Yes, sir.
So the big question, I think, more than anything else, is because it exceeds the limits of the program that we accepted, but the application came in prior to that, should he be bound by the new standards?
We also didn't have a budget at that time
Right.
for any grants.
Was money there for?
No.
50,000.
There wasn't any money, there wasn't no money allocated for the year for the program as a whole. So it was like, it was the same circumstance that you had with the home on River Street. And so you had a request, an unanticipated request, which came in at a time where you didn't have a budget allocation.
Of the program. So what did the staff recommend during that time? I mean,
There wasn't a recommendation there. The request was heard by the committee of three at that time. And there wasn't any, and at that point, there was consideration for a new program coming in place, so there wasn't a recommendation. And the thought was to bring it back before the CRA to find out what the agency as a whole wanted to, how the agency as a whole wanted to handle this. Mr. Alexander, can you come forward?
Jeremy Alexander, 134 Timber Lane. It was my understanding the fiscal year started in October. So at that point, when I started meeting with staff about the recruitment grant, just asked their input on the application, met with them a couple times. And I guess once in October, twice in November, and then December is when we came and met in front of the oversight committee. And I think that's kind of where we are today. But since the original application, we did obviously close on the building. We have secured 4D Engineering, structural engineering firm out of Lakeland. And they're in the process of drawing everything we need. And I think also in the process of getting our wares permit from the city, had several conversations with staff on that as well. So it's kind of where we are from a project perspective.
And for those who aren't familiar with the wares permit, will you go ahead and kind of give an explanation? Just give a quick summary of what your request was.
The wares permit, the city-owned property to the, I guess that would be northwest 8th Street side of 726 St. John's Avenue, what is now grassy area. We would like to put pavers, make it kind of an outdoor seating area to kind of further expand the event venue, give us some additional opportunities, but also highlight the existing Belton Syncopators mural that is outside on the 8th Street. We would like to highlight that a little more so than it is currently. Add some additional lighting. That's part of that project.
Okay. Do you mind giving a summary of Sailors on St. John's?
Sailors of St. John's, so 2 floors, 4,600 square feet downstairs, 4,600 upstairs. There are some structural reinforcements that need to take place to really guide what we'll be able to do upstairs. Downstairs is going to be currently planned to expand restrooms, but offer it as a venue for meetings, birthday parties, retirement parties, weddings, so forth, but also civic organizations, anybody that wants to use it. We will rent it out daily rental, hourly rental, even longer if folks want it for the weekend. Kind of waiting on Mr. Wilkinson's firm to give us guidance on what we can do upstairs. But large expense upstairs to expand the infrastructure electrically and plumbing wise what we need, but we're excited about it.
And what's the total price of your project, just for everyone else?
Including the acquisition of the building. Unfortunately, Angela ran into some medical issues, so her business closed. We acquired the building for $290,000. Total cost of the project is estimated about $300,000 or $310 additional $1,000, so about $600,000 is the price of the project right now. That does include engineering of $20-some thousand.
Any questions from the agency?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I thought you say here it's 400,000 for your initial capital investment.
How much?
400 is what it says here in the application.
Probably the loan would be my guess.
It says our initial capital investment operating expenses for 1 year estimated at 400,000.
Operating.
So it says your initial,
$60,000 cash plus the additional $290,000 loan, and then our operating expenses for the year about $50,000.
okay.
Yeah, just to give you an idea, there's some expenses in there outlined, but the insurance is $10,000, but they're all itemized in your packet.
I think it's a great project. We need this, obviously. I guess my question for staff is, where is the money coming from? And then what does this do to the project that, to the grant program that we just talked about?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I think that was a good question.
There's not adequate funding to fund this request and advertise for applications in the recently approved building improvement grant.
So basically, this would be the downtown district.
Yes, sir.
So you'd basically be eliminating any other grant opportunities in the downtown business district for this fiscal year.
Correct.
So what if, question to you, Jeremy, what if we were to go by the guideline, because right, there's no, we don't have the money to approve it usually. So, if we were to approve 25,000 versus 50, what would that do? Would that help you? Would it sink you?
Oh, we would appreciate anything. I mean, that's why we're here. I mean, we looked at the application project in October, the guidelines, that's what we used. We met with staff several times. Anyway, back and forth with what may fit the recruitment grant, and that's what was submitted. I wasn't aware at the time that the grant was changing, so
We weren't either.
yeah. So that's what I based it on, is what was on the website. Staff was very helpful, just to be perfectly honest.
I mean, I think he's in good faith. He's made his application long before we had the grant program, obviously. But I also think that leaving the additional 25,000 on the table for someone else to be able to use that as well is important. So I would be in favor of this project at 25,000, but not 50,000.
Well, I just heard him. He said he'll be able to take, he'll take anything. We'll give him $1 in that 25,000. 25,000 is pretty good for the project. So he did have his application in. I've spoke with him a couple of times and look at the magnitude of his project and investment. So that would be a good starting point.
And just in the interest of full disclosure, I have had conversation loosely about this project over a month ago. It just does not change my vote.
And so I'll bring it up. Ms. Correa's in the back of the room. I could see her. I could hear her saying that's not fair. And so just in anticipating what her comment is, if you can recall, we had a couple of projects that came before us before where we didn't have resources in place. And those were the two projects, the Lemon Street Market and the project with Mark Stanton. And so just wanted to make sure that we were reminded of those projects as well. And I think
Are they still viable?
Are these still?
they're moving. You got an update on your project? You have an update on your project? Yeah, go ahead.
My question is, are those projects still viable and in play?
Lemon Street has been paid.
Lemon Street, I received $5,000. Lemon Street opened on December 4th. I spent well over 100,000 on that building. I paid 125 for it, put another 100 plus into it. And the business is up and running. So 5, it just does seem a bit unfair that I requested 25 and was awarded 5. very recently. The same for Mr. Stan. I don't know how much you invested.
Yeah.
I'm hearing it. I agree with Ms. Correa. So I wonder if maybe we shouldn't pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah,
And is there, you said there's three now, three projects besides these?
No,
two?
those two have already been, they were funded. We didn't have resources in the budget at the time. You've got an approved, the only difference between those projects and this is you have an approved budget allocation at this point compared to
Right.
before.
I think no matter what we do, you know, somebody is going to come forward and say, you know what, I wish y'all had this last year, or we have to draw a line in the sand somewhere. Is there a chance that you would apply again for more funding?
I don't know if I don't think she's eligible.
No. You would not be eligible.
Well, could we look at what because based on what she submitted the first time, maybe we can look at it and see.
It's not
No.
You would have to adjust the criteria and
Right.
and that's the thing. So that's why I wanted to make sure you knew, because I think the intent is to fund the viable projects.
Right.
And I think the unfortunate piece that happened when Ms. Correa and Mr. Stanton applied was the fact that the resources were limited.
Right.
And so the difference is we've now adopted a criteria and budgeting. And so the only way that they would even be eligible to even for any reconsideration is if that was a part of the criteria and you find yourself a special exception. The reality is kind of like the conversation we have with Ms. Swetlip. Regardless of what you do, there's never going to be enough people that you can satisfy.
Right.
And that's the unfortunate part of having a limited pot of money to be able to do anything, particularly in a year that we didn't budget. And so I don't know what the answer is at that point. Right? So, but I just wanted to have the point information out there so everybody can have it as a point of consideration as we look at it. More and more, we're going to have viable projects that come into the community. We're starting to see owners come in and do things on projects and try to build Palatka as a destination as a whole, and they're investing. And you know, it's our hope and desire that we can help everybody. You know, unfortunately, some of us get no help or are not eligible for any help on projects. But I think that there's a need for every one of the projects that's come before us. And, you know, we want to do what we can to ensure that we are helping our citizens who are taking their money out the sidelines and doing something that's good for Palatka. So that being said, I'll open deliberations back up again.
I'd move that we approve the project as presented, but with the reduced funding at 25, not to exceed $25,000.
Second. But do we have to go through the criteria piece or whatever, the score? I mean, because he's already got all the.
You're awarding this
he's
under
already-
the old grant.
Yeah, the BIG.
So, yeah, so we're applying a new policy to an old grant.
You really can't, we can't do that.
That's.
It's an application process that we just put in place today.
Right.
So his application wouldn't be in.
He filed his application under the old grant program.
Right, so here's my question, just to throw it out there. Why don't we just take his proposal first?
I don't understand.
Well,
What do we do before we adopted a new process? It wouldn't matter either way. You still have the same issue. I mean, the date of his the time at which he applies is not going to change, regardless of whether you got old criteria or new criteria, because his application predated the program.
some technical stuff in there, wasn't any money then. So if we would have addressed it, when it's not any money, the answer would have been simple. Then we wouldn't have had some folks saying it's not fair and others saying it is fair.
The only thing that I'm not trying to muddy the water at all, but I don't think you had any budget for grants when you awarded the Stanton money. when you awarded the
Will Heights.
Lemon Street, when you awarded Will Heights. You simply on a item by item basis, you took money out of reserves. Our whole staff's whole idea in this was to add some certainty to the process by asking you to adopt a budget for grants, eliminate all the different grants that got confusing, make this available to both commercial and residential, which you did, and move forward from this point. But the application was filed while the old grant program was viable. And I think an argument can certainly be made that he made an application for a grant that was open at the time. And it's from an equitable standpoint, it's fair to consider his application for the grant program that was open at the time. So.
Right. I don't have any problem with that. The question is to put it out there in the public like we are doing now. The question would be, why didn't? And I just wanted to have that answer. Why in the middle of the
because the meeting got canceled. That's the long and short answer. The meeting was set for, we had a meeting set where he was on the agenda and he got canceled.
So he shouldn't pay for our error.
I don't know if it's an error. It's just the meeting was canceled. And the meeting was canceled because of COVID. I don't think it's anybody's error.
So could we do this on the same basis as the Will Heights or whatever, based off of what we've done prior to implementing the new policy?
Isn't there a motion on the floor?
Yeah, you seconded already, right?
Yeah.
So we are,
There's a motion for we're at deliberation.
we're just talking.
I don't think it's anything that we haven't done in the past.
Right.
If that's your question.
Because we're funding it anyway from the way we did it in the past.
You know, there
Except
was,
we're not using the new criteria.
there was a lot of pushback from the community when we ended the HIP or the home improvement grant. I think this is one of those unfortunate situations where we can't unring the bell. We have an application in front of us. I don't think that we need to wipe out all the funding, obviously, for this one application. So we still have the ability to fund other projects going forward.
And complicate.
But it's one of those deals. I think if this was in front of us a month ago, we would have done the same thing.
Well, the motion is on the floor.
This is motion on the floor. I got one speaker card.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Svetlik.
Annie Swetlake, 511 North 3rd Street, Palatka, Florida. Yeah, I have a question about this and I'm confused because we have people that have put in an application years ago and never heard a thing about it while the program was still in place. One of them is one of my neighbors, Chris Hollister, who put in his application years ago. So, why isn't that then being considered?
He put in, I don't hear him speaking because I don't know anything about it.
Okay,
I mean, you can't call him up. I call him up. I control the meeting.
okay.
So, I mean, you can't run this meeting. You can, give me a second.
Okay, I don't know.
I got you, but just let me do some things.
So,
You can't run my meeting.
okay,
So.
all right. So
I don't have a problem calling him up, but let me call him up when I get ready to.
Good, whatever.
It
Yeah.
ain't whatever. It's
No,
let me
okay.
call him up when it's time to call him up.
Sure.
Run this
Sure.
meeting.
Yeah,
accordingly.
you're the mayor, sure, but
And I'm actually the chair of this committee as well.
Okay,
So
you're the
thank
chair.
you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Come on up. You can sit down now. You're wonderful.
Chris Hollister, 602 North 3rd Street. I put an application in maybe a couple of years ago for fencing. Haven't heard anything, and then I was told that it was null and void because you've changed your, you changed the new criteria. But I never heard a thing.
Mr. Mayor, if I can.
Go ahead.
So a couple of years ago, we ended the home improvement. Help me out here.
TIF.
Home improvement grant or home improvement program, HIP?
TIF.
TIF, okay. So we're in a different place now with a completely different, there was nothing for you to apply for then. if it was 2 years ago.
Hmm.
So now there is, and he in good faith applied, and we have money available, whereas before, apparently when Ms. Correa applied, there was none. I'm sorry, what?
Why isn't there money available?
Oh, why isn't there?
Why wasn't there money available? 2
We
years
took all the
ago?
money out. Remind me, we moved the money into reserves and used it for, we ended the HIP program. What was it? We used it for, we used the money for the brick pavers and the other improvements that were going on. I mean, the truth is, there's only so much money at any given point in time. And if we set aside money for BIG as we are now, that's being taken away from something else that it could be used for. So it's give and take. So there's only one pot of money. That's all we have to spend.
Mayor, can I add some clarification?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick. The CRA board revised the tax increment home improvement program a couple of years ago because there was just one in place for the north and south. The CRA at that time adopted a new program that applied to all 3 districts. At that point in time, all
There's no
old
funding.
applications were not considered anymore. And from that point forward, staff no longer kept a queue of applications as a practice. So we have no applications on file.
I think we voted on like, yeah, if any, when the new program will be put back, when the new program will be put back in place, they will have to resubmit. I think that's what we ended up
That is correct, sir.
voting on. Sir.
So this is called opening up a can of worms. I guess this is why I don't like the program. I don't like any of them. Where I live, you don't get this choice. Every dollar I put in my house, I put in out of my pocket. Every dollar I put in my businesses, even in the CRA district, I put out of my pocket.
Yeah, but this encourages the historic.
It encourages a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
but still for certain business owners and for certain residents, you're gonna still be in the same position.
I'm in the same boat you're in. I agree.
I just dropped $100 grand in a building and I can't get one penny on that building.
right there with you.
And I can tell you my investment is gonna be a lot more than a whole bunch of other folks around here.
But I think at the end of the day, when you drive downtown, it looks different than it did several years ago or 10 years ago. And that's what it takes.
But I guess the frustrating part is the sense of entitlement for some of it as it goes through these processes. I think everybody sits on this agency tries to do what's best for the community as a whole. They try to do what's best for citizens. And in doing good, you're gonna always be second guessed. And you're never gonna be able to help everybody. And you're never gonna be able to help everybody. I mean, the reality of it is, hell, we should be happy. We got a new business coming in town that's gonna drop 400,000 into an old building. We should be happy that we've got additional businesses here. We should be happy that homeowners are trying to do additional rehab projects on their homes. But instead, it becomes a point of contention and it's a point of frustration sometimes. And that's not what these programs are intended to do. You know, for all those homeowners that want to do improvements to their house, kudos, it's great. We should applaud them. And if we got the mechanisms to help them, we should help them. When there is no money, and the difference between then and now, I think, is that you go from a point of financial, you know, we're trying to be benevolent. And at the end of the day, we're still trying to build a budget. And it's hard to be a philanthropist in a poor community and to be a stimulator of economy and all these other things and create a culture where citizens are taking ownership for how they improve their homes and their neighborhoods. It's hard to do that. We've got 3 districts where we're trying to implement programs so it's done, but at the same time, we don't want to create a culture of entitlement where people are saying, oh, I pay taxes and I should get this. Well, hell, you pay the same taxes that they pay all across town. And in some cases, your houses aren't valued as much. But we've got to all look at the overall goal, because it gets to be frustrating to hear people back and forth. No, we can't give everybody the same amount of money. I mean, if that's the case, we'll do a $5,000 facade grant, be done with it, and that's it. Some people are going to invest 5, and what happens when the guy who's invested 5 million comes in here and says, I want more than the 50 grand that you put in the budget, and there's an opportunity in reserves to do it because he's bringing 300 jobs. What do we do at that point? So we've all got to take on a certain level of consciousness as we do this. And it's not going to be perfect. The program isn't going to be perfect. It's going to have its snags. Staff has worked tirelessly on trying to put something together that makes some semblance of sense and creates a formula for fairness. And we're going to continually second guess it and fuss and raise sand and do all this other stuff. And we're going to find ourselves in a position where people like me, who really aren't in favor of the programs, are going to stop trying to give an opportunity to try. In the North District, I think there's an opportunity. I encourage Mr. Chris to come back, because I want him to apply, because there's an opportunity. And again, people are getting frustrated. I want him to apply because, you know, he was patient in trying to get it done, but that's it. But we miss it. So he walks out frustrated because people are going through this. And if there's no money on the table, none of us are frustrated. We all walk out of here and everybody can pony up. So that's just where I am. I just think that there is no win when you're trying to help. So that's where we are.
I think you're right. It goes without saying that there's $110,000 that's going to be put into play for all 3 TIFs here shortly. And maybe after this budget year is up, we'll have a little more money we can put in there and things will start flowing. We won't ever have this conversation again.
Yeah, I think, Counselor, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am.
Um,
I had a question as to, do the applications expire at the end of the fiscal year in which the application was submitted? Because, you know, talking about applications that were submitted a couple of years ago, I mean, at that rate, you'll never, I mean, there should be some kind of guidelines that there's that the applications expire.
Excellent point.
And you try again. If you want to continue to submit an application to receive the funding, then you submit another application. In the case of Mr. Alexander's point, my recommendation is that he has now an application on the table. He can submit with the May 16th, on or about May 16th, and be in that batch where there's an evaluation and then there's a determination. From what I heard from what was said previously, there wasn't a decision made on his application. So it's just an application that's sitting out there that would be in with this batch that's should be submitted by the May 16th deadline. Thank you, Mayor.
If I could address that, like my entire conversation with staff was around a recruitment grant. I haven't even read this criteria. I don't have any idea what the new criteria is. So to think that my application might fit the mold, I'd at least want to see that.
I guess the question I would have for council is, if his application is in before the program is approved, is it viable for the program that was just approved, or is it viable for the program that was in place the day that he submitted?
Up to the, it's up, I think the short answer is up to the agency.
Yes.
And that's why staff wants guidance. And I mean, I think that's what it boils down to. I think the cleaner answer, and that's probably what Commissioner Jones was getting to, he's still running under the new guideline. He's still, even with the recommendation that's coming from staff, the numbers are the same. He's gonna be he'll be at the max of the award under the new guidelines. And so at that point, it's just a matter of scoring this project. He's already submitted his stuff. But we're here and there's a motion on the floor at this point. So it's really the pleasure of the agency as a whole.
Look like based on what I've seen, it's the information that he provided that, we have not confirmed, but he's already put in significant investment, what have you, but if we need to apply the new policy to it, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Do I need to withdraw my motion, or do we move forward? How, in order to comply with our new policy?
The reality of it is, Commissioner, there is no right answer. If you vote to apply the new guidelines, it's good. A few people are gonna be happy, and Mr. Alexander's probably not gonna be happy. If you vote to do the other way, you're gonna be in the same boat. Nobody's gonna be happy no matter which way you go. So it's really up to the agency at this point. Is there any further discussion on this motion?
I just like to say, the application that we received under attachment A specifies it's a recruitment grant, which is a completely different type of grant than we were talking about before. So I think we need to take action on what was presented to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call this to question. Roll call.
Commissioner Tammy McCaskill.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Will Jones.
Yes. That's at
Commissioner-
25%, right?
25,000.
Commissioner Justin Campbell.
Yes.
Commissioner Rufus Forum.
Yes.
Commissioner Jeff Ross.
Yes.
No Hill.
No.
Motion passed, Mayor.
Motion passes 5-1.
So for clarification, Mayor, could I ask, so the 25,000?
Now there has to be a budget amendment. That was gonna be your next question.
Right. So the 25,000 is gonna come from not this pot of money that we just allocated. That's for clarification. That's why I'm asking you. You made the motion, that's why I said, so you went back and said, this is on a different application for something different, where we didn't have funding. So that funding does not affect this funding that we just approved.
It could.
It shouldn't.
If you want to fund it this fiscal year, it would have to, or some other approved budget line.
There have to be a budget amendment.
There
would have to be a budget amendment in order to pull money from another line or from the remaining reserves to fund this project.
I thought the spirit of the motion that Commissioner Rawls petitioned was that we would take, of the 50,000 being pulled from reserves, 25,000 would go to Mr. Alexander, 25,000 would go to the new program that you
Correct.
approved.
So his spirit wasn't stated. So if he wants to state his spirit as a motion, then we'll take it as a motion, but the spirit wasn't stated.
Right.
And that wasn't my understanding.
And that wasn't my vote for that way.
So at this point, I will entertain a motion as to the budget amendment to fund the project.
I make a motion that we move $25,000 from the budgeted 50,000 in the central TIF
All right, there's a motion on the floor in a second. Is there a second? Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Campbell. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Again, I would like, just for point of clarity, when you went back and you restated your motion, you said you wanted to make clarification that this application was for another project.
Correct.
Right. So that project didn't have any funding. Didn't have any funding. So when you made the motion to give them the 25,000, the money, it had no effect on what we just approved and what we just allocated. It should not.
I thought, and I apologize for the vagueness, but I thought I made it clear when I said that we were leaving 25,000 in the central TIF, moving the 25,000 out. That was my intention. And I apologize if I was vague, but I did say that of the 50,000 for central TIF, we were leaving 25 in there for another project.
But
He did.
But,
state
but when we were trying to clarify, the clarity was, program just was approved and we accepted it. And you came back and you stated, you just reviewed your documents and the application was for a previous program.
A recruitment grant.
Right. We
Right,
get
two
it.
different grants.
The on the backside, yeah, on the latter part of, yeah, the conversation.
So I just wanted the money to be available for new applicants. I wanted the 50,000 to be available for new applicants. I think that's fair. And I think it's also fair that Mr. Alexander get 25,000, but not out of this pot. And that's why my vote was as such.
So let's do this. So for the
I'll
sake
pull
of.
my motion.
No. You already made a motion. There's a motion on the floor and there's a second. We're in discussion. And so for the purposes of what I think Commissioner Jones wants to accomplish, we can come back at our next meeting and give staff time to figure out if there's an opportunity to move 25,000 out of the existing budget from different line items to make up for what's in place so that still exists. But for the purposes of February 14th, I'm not trying to belabor this point. Is there any further discussion today on this motion as it sits here? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
In Zoom land, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, nay. Motion passes again 5-1. So for the purposes of what we have in place, I'm requesting for the next commission meeting that we look at opportunities, that we get suggestions on the agenda for ways to recoup that $25,000 in recruitment grant money so that it can be used in the central business district. Well, and the new grant program, whatever. Is that okay with this agency?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to the interview and selection of a new community redevelopment agency governing board member for a 4-year term. All right, Mr. Daffy, you're here for that position. You're an applicant for that position, correct? You want to come forward this time? Go ahead and give your name for the record. I'll give you a minute to give. Go ahead and give us a quick overview as to why you're seeking the position.
I apologize. We can't hear him.
We can't hear him.
Mike, can you match the button on the microphone?
Sorry. I do believe that we need and I know we will soon have additional business owners downtown, but I think it's very important that we have someone on this board who is downtown every day, who sees who moves in, who sees the issues that are going on, who lives the part and can communicate back and forth. Currently, we don't have that. Soon, I know the mayor will be down in the 800 block, I do believe. But we need some of that representation downtown on an everyday living basis so that you know what's happening, what's going on and who can communicate to those that are down there. The second part of that is the communication. I can take you up and down St. John's Avenue and try to introduce you as a CRA member, and you will get blank looks. Their communication is a very important part of this, and it's a part that we are sorely lacking in communicating the issues back and forth, one to this board and from this board as to what's going on to the building owner, who, as you know, we have a number of absentee landlords, or to those that are actually renting those buildings, which is another whole echelon who gets less information because the building owner doesn't necessarily pass that on. The letter you're talking about sending out, how many landlords are there in the north, south, and central districts who will not pass that information on about any program to those that are renting? And those people will once again miss out. There's things like that that I think we need to take care of. I do believe I can present part of that to the commission. We have been a business in this city for 57 years. We have a few more years to go, and we're looking forward to helping to serve in whatever capacity that we can while we are still active in this community.
Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Just for information. My business was located in downtown business district for 20 years.
20 years.
And I think Commissioner Jones may have been another 15 years in there, and Mr. Holmes has been there for 10 decades. And I think Commissioner Rawls has a business in the downtown business. district for a
I have
number
one
of
that
years.
backs up to it. I back up
Yeah.
to Laurel Street, but I don't get credit for that.
And so there is some familiarity on the part of the agency for downtown, but we appreciate your sentiments just as well. And so next up, is Ms. Kemp available for us? I see where she's applied.
They
And
advised me up front they're not able to get a hold of Ms. Kemp.
And so we're all aware that Ms. Kemp has previously served on the board. Her term expired. She was a representative for the downtown business owners. And she succeeded Mr. Deputy when he no longer served in that capacity. And our newcomer, Mr. Thomas Rowley.
Good evening. Tom Rowley, my wife Maria and I moved to Palatka in May of last year, purchased a house, 215 Dodge Street. I have 30 some years in community and economic development practice and planning with federal, state, local, and county government levels. And I'm looking for a way to contribute to the community and lend whatever help I can. And this seemed like a good spot to perhaps do that. So I appreciate your consideration.
Okay.
What did you say you moved from, Mr. Rowley?
Most recently Roanoke, Virginia, but we've lived all over the country.
You got a little bit of government experience in economic development as well?
About 30 years.
And what agency is that?
First with U.S. Department of Agriculture. 10 years of rural development policy work at U.S. Department of Agriculture Economic Research Service. Then as a fellow with the Rural Policy Research Institute for many years, as a program manager with Tennessee Valley Rural Authority through the University of Kentucky, then with EDCO, which is a regional economic development organization in Central Oregon, then with the state of Oregon, and then with Roanoke County. I'm currently with U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Any questions of our, thank you. Any questions of any of our applicants? Any other applicants that are not listed? Those are the only three, correct? And so at this time, the agency has to make a recommendation as to where we are. We have both Mr. Deputy who's been a long-serving member of the CRA board. And also Ms. Kemp, who served on the board as well. And we have our new resident, Mr. Rowley, who's looking to come into the community and get engaged. And so I'll open up the floor for deliberation from the agency as a whole before we entertain any motions.
I think that with just listening into what we have been presented, and knowing that we've had two individuals that have served previously, I would love to have a fresh face with the experience and the expertise that Mr. Riley brings, and that's just my comment.
Any other comments?
I guess, excuse me, I have a question for Mr. Rowley. And when I read your resume for the first time, I just went through and verified it. If you were appointed to this board, how do we know that you won't be gone from here in a year and a half or 2 years? Because, right, and that can have a negative impact on the community as well. So, you know, what is your level of commitment?
It's a great question, and I'll answer this, and I don't mean to be flippant. My wife would kill me if we move again.
Right, okay.
She's in the process of finishing up a master's in mental health counseling, and is looking to find a position here locally in the next year.
Oh, that won't be hard.
And
Just-
and honestly,
we have a lot of openings for those.
Our intent is that this is our last stand. Now, I can't promise you, side conversation, I'd be happy to answer, why I left the positions I left. I didn't leave any of them.
I don't need an explanation. I grew up with a father that we didn't live in a place more than 3 or 4 years and we moved. And I just, when I was moving to this the other day, I thought, where are you going to be a year from now?
Understandable.
We're going to give you his phone number, Commissioner.
Do what?
We're going to give you his phone number. Y'all can finish the conversation.
I have it.
Go ahead. You got another question?
I have it. It's part of the public record.
I got you. It's almost 6 o'clock in Alabama.
I have another meeting to go to after this. So, yep.
Good luck if you make it out. So any other questions from the agency? Seeing none, I agree with the sentiments of Commissioner Campbell. I think it's a great opportunity for us to bring on, a new perspective as to where we are, who can work collaboratively with the experience and wisdom of those who sat in the seat before, such as Ms. Kemp and Mr. Deputy. But I also think that there is an opportunity for us really to continually move forward in the things that we're doing in this community and to be able to just push it all together. And so I concur with Commissioner Campbell. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion that we move forth and fill the vacancy with Mr. Riley to serve on the CRA board.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second by Commissioner McCaskill. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Motion carries unanimously. Again, congratulations to you and welcome aboard at this time. We'll swear you in before our next meeting, give you all the information, and we will have staff and the city manager get with you so that they can give you an orientation as well and some of the updates on what's going on with the CRA plan so that we can start to move forward. Also, thank you to Mr. Deputy and Ms. Kemp for always wanting to volunteer and serve this community. It's our way of giving you a little bit of break because you've been here, you've been serving tirelessly for so many years. And I just think that there's a great opportunity for your insight and your history to be passed on to our newcomer so that he can make sure that we continue to meet the concerns of our local business leaders. And we can do that, I think, in a greater fashion with everyone working collectively. And so again, thank you for all of you who replied. Next up is our update for property acquisition and cleanup. Mr. Holmes.
Yes, sir. We've acquired two properties on 302 and 308, as I recall, North 11th. We found that there's a tenant of one. The city attorney is moving forward with an ejectment / eviction proceeding. We have already accepted 3 bids or solicited 3 quotes on the cost of demolition of those structures. We have those. And as soon as we get the one tenant out of the one property, we'll be proceeding to go ahead and demolish and clear those 2 properties. The third property that we had made an oral agreement to buy is the title is something we're having to try to sort out because it had never been probated over the years. And we've got a term I never had heard until I came to Putnam County was heirs property. It is heirs property, and there are a bunch of them, it appears. So we're trying to work that through. And depending upon what it's going to take to get that property worked through, we may not be willing to retain the same price unless the seller is going to be willing to clear the title. So that's where we are with that.
Seems like we're moving closer to a quiet title action.
It does.
Any questions?
Maintain the price on the third property.
The first 2 we've already closed on. We own those first 2, but now we had a tenant that is not apparently they're not there by way of any written or oral lease agreement, but they're there. And so we've got to move forward to evict or eject them from the site. And
how long is that process?
The quick answer for any lawyer is it depends on what it depends on the courts more than anything else. Because you're in a perfect world, it'd be about 60 days. I think in the reality is it depends on how quickly the courts move, and none of us really know that right now. If it was an eviction, you could say probably in 60 to 90 days. With an ejectment, it could be longer.
And the other question would be, based on this process, does it impact anything that we would have in terms of the demolition piece? Was it in it is it within that time frame still, or would it go past the time frame that we have for the project?
You can't
Scope of the project.
You can't do anything unless they vacate the property. So, I mean, they could voluntarily surrender, and it could happen in a matter of days, and you could be done.
I inquired about that today with a gentleman who was a former landlord, and he said that probably won't happen.
So,
we just kind of wait. Time process.
So if anybody here has any contacts there, it may be an opportunity to kind of maybe expedite the process as well and get them to comply. But that's another conversation for a different time. So any insights or any help that anybody who may be familiar with the occupants has, that may help. Any other questions as rates to the property?
I guess on the Mayor Hill, could you repeat that latter part? You said if you have.
If you know who's living there and you have a contact, then it may be an opportunity for you to get with council and see if you can maybe make contact with them to see if they're willing to vacate upon the date given in the notice.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the Sbdc report at this time.
If your button on.
Now it is. Can you hear me okay? Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rick Paul from the Small Business Development Center. I would like to say happy Valentine's Day to everybody. I know it's been kind of a long meeting and it's Valentine's Day, so make sure that you get to have fun with your significant other this evening. Kudos to the city and the chamber for a fantastic, what I thought, Bass Elite fishing tournament. The numbers behind the TV broadcast are apparently in the millions, and it's an international event. We had an individual from Japan that finished in the top 10, and I think that is a fantastic showpiece for the city and Putnam County. So great job on that. And also kudos to the individuals who put on the Fly-In and Car Show. Another fantastic event, a little crammed this weekend, as we know, but that's what happened with the weather last time. I spoke to half a dozen different pilots coming in from a couple hundred miles away. I believe there were 150 cars in attendance, and I believe there were at least 125 aircraft of every type you could think of, including jets there. So kudos on both of those events. A couple of things that I want to show up. Business Florida. I think you all have a handout of this. It's a nice little booklet. It's handy to hand out to individuals who are thinking about starting a business and getting some ideas about it. As far as the workshops coming up, Mr. Mayor has a minority business enterprise certification on March 8th. That will be at the Chamber of Commerce from 5:30 to 6:30. We're bringing in an individual, Greg Grant, from the University of North Florida to address that specifically. Flyers for that will be going out a little bit later, but you do have the overall list of all the workshops that are coming up. Also, we have a social tomorrow night. This one will be at Harper Flooring, which is 314 US 17 North in Palatka. And also, this is we're kind of calling it a pop-up event too, as well as an entrepreneur social, because we have our own PTAC specialist, and PTAC stands for Professional and Technical Assistance. There we go. Thank you, Commissioner Rawls.
I figured you'd speak up.
So government contracting specialist will be there also to answer any questions. Something new that's in town that's very encouraging. This is a meet and greet for the young entrepreneurs of Putnam County. This is Ethan Coles putting this on. He was involved in the air show here just this past weekend.
I'm too old.
Excuse me?
I'm too old.
You're too old. Okay. Yes, I'm too old for it too. I think he said maximum age of 45. So, I'm only 29, but what can I say? But anyhow, an excellent opportunity. This is fantastic news for the community that entrepreneurship and small business is kind of catching on, and the young entrepreneurs are now looking to take action on that. So for impact, I've got a couple things I want to talk about real quick. Anybody in the restaurant business here? So we have some, restaurant folks as clients, and I think 3 of them were at the printer the other day because they have to print new menus because the cost of goods is going up through the roof. How much, you might ask? Last year, 40 pounds of frozen chicken cost $40. This year, the same 40 pounds of chicken cost $119. That's a 300% increase in 1 year. So lots of restaurants as clients, and we got to raise prices, look for better sources of supply. So the impact is not going to be apparent for a little while, but hopefully the restaurants will survive through this. Also, a client that makes barbecue grills, real big, nice smokers. One of those pieces of sheet metal that they use to bend around it used to be $150. Current price is close to $500. So that's a 330% increase in the cost of goods. 2 different types of businesses working with both, trying to get a better handle on cost of goods and things along those lines. Excuse me. Another client is trying to sell a business, and we had a fantastic workshop last weekend with John Rowe, who's our own homegrown Palatka CPA in town. Very well attended. By the way, Commissioner Jones, you had suggested that we go virtual on these workshops, and I'm happy to report we did. We had 6 people in attendance in person and 4 online. So 10 turning out for a workshop on understanding financial statements, I believe is actually a pretty good turnout. So some of the clients that I have, we're dealing with not keeping the books very well, and they're trying to sell a business or, value a business or something along those lines. And if you can't prove you're making money, how can you sell a business? Because that's what you're selling, is you're selling an income stream to somebody. So this is fairly common in this area. So that was one of the reasons I had the Understand Financial Statements seminar, and got a couple clients in that boat that are trying to help out with cost of goods sold, and getting them in contact with bookkeepers and CPAs to try to get everything on the up and up, I guess is the best way to say it. Very good turnout at the seminars. The consulting's going well, but again, at the moment, the impact isn't, like $30 million in new businesses yet. Give me, a couple more years if you don't mind on that one. Do you all have any questions?
Are you doing any recruitment events to not recruit small businesses, but maybe some commerce in like big businesses? Any word on anything like?
Okay, that would probably be Sam at the chamber would be
That's gonna be-
the one to talk mostly about that. I deal
Sam
mostly
Ruiz.
with mom and pop businesses that are here in town, trying to make them more profitable so that they can show the profit and then hire and grow their business.
And on the side note of that as well, you talked about showing the income statements and things of that nature.
Yes, sir.
You have any financial institution that actually collaborate and work with you guys when you have that group, specific individuals that's.
Yes, there
Learn
are
that
several
part.
financial institutions that I'm talking with, and we're got some clients trying to go through the procedure right now. That's one of the services we offer is loan packaging. So we talk about loan packaging, we talk about the business plan, it doesn't have to be a book, 4 or 5 pages, depending on what you're trying to do, and some financial projections. So income statement, cash flow, balance sheet type information. Yes, sir.
So like the people that I did send to you, a lot of them are startup, so they don't have that. A lot of times they don't have the capital. Those are some good workshops to have too. And I know you have been doing them, so I want to give you kudos while you're up here on what you've been doing and how you've reached out to the folk that I sent you. And when people ask us as a city, what are we doing? Let them know that you're up there and you're up there to help the community grow.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I
Thank you
will
for-
hold some more workshops in the near future that are a little bit more startup oriented for that.
Right.
Okay.
So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Here's the last question. Are you having any luck with local banks as far as partnering with you?
Yes, we've got some, these pop-ups, we're calling them, where we go and talk to them. And then we put a table in and let people come in and ask us questions. So we're getting that relationship going. And I'm also meeting with the lenders and talking to them, trying to figure out what they need. And it varies according to the bank and it varies according to the individual coming in.
Yeah, because I know historically we've had some challenges in trying to get our local banks, because we don't truly have a community bank in the area to come on board and really be willing to take risk with our local business owners. And so I know that's always been a challenge, and One-to-One Financial seemed to be one of the only partners that was there. So I just wanted to know, what was your luck with that?
I just want to say, you're telling Noah about the flood when you're talking about the price, cost of goods sold. But, one thing that we really need to be paying attention to in all seriousness is, especially when you're talking to your business owners, is getting them prepared for the storm that's brewing with the competition over labor, whether it's skilled or unskilled. And there's just a bloodbath in the street right now, of people fighting over what's available, what people are paying. The other day at the county commission meeting, we had a gentleman approach the podium and said that he pulled up to Chick-fil-A and they're offering $19 an hour at the window if anybody wants to work plus, and including plus benefits. So it's going to become problematic for us as a community because our housing inventory is nil. Our housing costs have gone up, and not exponentially. Our housing costs have gone up. They've more than doubled in the past 2.5 years. We're over $200,000 now for median home sales. And that's going to be problematic for anyone looking to get into the workforce that's coming out of high school or college. And when we hit that brick wall called $15 an hour, we really need to be thinking about the folks that are now making 15, how we're going to handle those folks and getting them to 20, 25. But That $8.99 hamburger platter at Angel's the other day, it stings a lot, but think about the folks that are making 10 or 11 or $12 an hour right now and looking to pay for a mortgage. Not to throw anybody on the bus, but you got a place like Barrington Apartments, they're getting almost $1,500 a month for 2 bed and 2 bathroom. That is not sustainable. It's not affordable. I don't think it really describes Putnam County or the city of Palatka right now. We're going to have to deal with this. And I think everybody needs to go into it with their eyes wide open, because if you're not aware of this, get yourself aware real quick, because this is really happening. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, if I could, I need to get to Boswick for a community association meeting. Do you mind if I excuse myself?
No. No,
Thank you.
no, sir.
No, you don't mind?
Yeah, we mind.
The question was, do you mind?
We mind. We definitely mind. You have anything else first, Mr. Moore?
That's got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the agency? Commissioner McCaskill,
Not at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Campbell,
No, sir.
Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Borum.
I just want to thank the staff for working on the policy change for CRA for the new programs or whatever. Great
You have the
effort.
streetscape
Oh.
update still on the agenda.
I do.
Yes.
Mr. Saluski,
Yes, can you hear me fine?
sir? We hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I'll just give you a quick update. Make it short and sweet. So this is the streetscape project from 4th Street to 13th Street along St. John's Ave. This is where we're going in and freshening up the streetscape. Right now, we have got a lot of the documentation ready. We are waiting for FDOT approval on our final 100% construction documents. It's been in FDOT's inbox for quite some time now, and we are constantly hounding them, trying to get those comments back so we can go out to bid. But right now, we're just waiting for FDOT approval. While we've been waiting, we've been, crossing our T's and dotting our I's, putting everything together to go out to bid. And we've also been meeting with a few local business owners as well to button up any questions they may have and making tweaks to the drawings that we might be able to accommodate. So that's the update. I'll answer any questions that anyone may have.
Just so we know, you're not sharing your screen right now, right?
Correct.
Okay. And I know you've had some challenges with some of the streets and trying to maximize parking in areas where there's been some creative parking put in place in the past, i.e. 8th Street.
That is correct. Yes, we're working with local business owners right now to maximize the amount of parking we can have, make sure that it still meets code and satisfies business owners' needs.
And so we definitely appreciate your work in that, along with various members from staff who've been working with the property owners in that area to try to make things happen as well as moving forward. Any other questions from the agency before we adjourn? Thank you very much, Mr. Saluski.
Thank you.
You got 2.5 seconds.
HP has a ribbon cutting tomorrow in the 700 block, starting with Atmosphere at 5:15, then Brownie's Outpost at 5:30, and Lemon Street Market Mercantile at 5:45.
We couldn't understand your accent. You
See?
sounded like Sunny.
I need, well, that's what you said quick. I need cue
5:45.
cards. Okay, we have a ribbon cutting event tomorrow, beginning at 5:15 at Atmosphere Day Spa, then Brownie's Outpost at 5:30 and Lemon Street Market at 5:45, all in the 700 block, easy to get to. Yes,
I'm going to do my very best, but we have FBC Leo meeting.
okay, I get it.
So it starts at 5. So
5:15. Oh, your meeting starts at 5. Okay.
you go from 5 to 6:30.
Okay, I get it. That's fine. I understand. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Anything else?